Hello, and welcome to this Acumatica video entitled Discovery Diligence, Building Confidence to Drive Success. We have a full agenda today, but one which we hope you will find both informative and thought-provoking. So, let's get started. Objectives for this video are as follows: to help you better understand the purpose of the discovery diligence process, to demonstrate how the discovery diligence process facilitates win-win client engagements, to discuss the benefits of performing thorough and conscientious discovery diligence, to present a new conceptualization of client needs, expectations, and resources, to offer a simple yet effective procedural framework with which to conduct your discovery diligence engagements, and finally, to suggest a few resources that may assist you in honing your diligence preparation and execution skills. As you probably know, the ultimate business objective for most seasoned and successful consultants is to effect a transaction which confers mutual benefit to each of the consultant and the client, both in the present and in hindsight. Of course, what I'm referring to is the win-win paradigm, a business strategy that time and again continues to bestow upon its practitioners rich rewards, including enhanced brand recognition, repeat business, abundant referrals, profitability, and professional satisfaction. But I could almost hear some of you wondering, what does win-win have to do with discovery diligence or this presentation? Your answer is simply this: experience has shown that discovery diligence has, more than any other activity in the sales cycle, been the greatest determinant of whether or not a win-win transaction is actually and ultimately realized. That is to say, dedicated, competent discovery diligence is the key to win-win. Okay then, so what exactly is discovery diligence and how does it enable the win-win transaction? Well, to begin with, let's think about what it means when we say a client feels he has won. As you would probably agree, a winning client is one who is satisfied with the products and services he or she has received, right? But what exactly does it mean to be satisfied? Well, according to our friends at Webster, satisfaction is defined as fulfillment of a need or a want. And so there you have it. A win-win transaction is one which the client's needs are satisfied or, of course, exceeded. But obviously, we can't possibly hope to satisfy a client need or expectation until we know what they are. And that is discovery diligence. That is what discovery diligence is ultimately all about: identifying client needs and expectations. Or more precisely, discovery diligence is the mission-critical process which the Acumatica partner undertakes in order to gain a deep and thorough understanding of a prospect's needs, expectations, and resources. But before moving on, let's pause for a moment and think about the ramifications of what we've just learned. In fact, we have learned that before any sales pitch, before any dialogue about functional requirements, and certainly before any presentation of any kind of demonstration, we must first and always have done our discovery diligence. Why? Because if we fail to do so, we are literally trying to address a client's needs and expectations without having the vaguest notion of what they actually are. Please, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that aggressive selling isn't important, but think about this. If you walked into a doctor's office and instead of asking you what symptoms you are experiencing, she proceeded to go into great detail and show you the inner workings of her new MRI machine, you'd be rather alarmed, wouldn't you? Hopefully you see my point. Let's continue our discussion about clients' needs by taking a look at a tool called the Johari's window. The Johari's window is a simple and useful tool for illustrating and conceptualizing the level of understanding between individuals. In our case, the understanding refers to our understanding of the client's needs as illustrated by Johari's window of client needs and expectations, the one you see here. Looking closely, you will note we have two parties looking through this special window: the client, or prospect, and the Acumatica partner. You will note that the client is peering in from the top of the window and our partner is looking in from the left-hand side. The window itself contains the client's entire constellation of needs and expectations. However, because of their respective vantage points, neither the prospect nor the consultant can see all of these needs. Rather, each can only see a certain subset. For example, the two columns left and right contain the needs that are known and unknown to the client. And in the two rows top and bottom are all of the needs that are either known or unknown to the consultant. Got me? Great. Let's keep going. In the top left-hand corner of the window, we have box 1. We can call this the known box because, as we can see, it contains the subset of needs and expectations that are known to both the prospect and the Acumatica partner. This is a very special box because it represents the best of all scenarios. Why? Because when both parties are aware of a set of needs, they can begin to work collaboratively to find solutions. Indeed, to the extent that needs and expectations fall into this box, process improvements can be made, efficiencies can be gained, and costs can be saved. This is also the box where clear communication and mutual understanding resides, and where it is completely appropriate to engage in a discussion of functional requirements and the considerable power, functionality, and value of the Acumatica product suite. It therefore goes without saying that the objective of Discovery Diligence is to endeavor to shift as many client needs and expectations as possible into this known box. But now let's take a look at box number 2. What we find in this box is the set of needs that are known to the client but thus far are unknown to the Acumatica partner. Clearly, there can be no collaborative problem solving here. So what the consultant must do, by way of Discovery Diligence, is to identify these yet unknown needs. And he will do this by listening to his client, by asking thorough, open-ended questions, by looking around as he tours the client's premise, and he will endeavor to put himself in the very shoes of his client so he could develop an empathic understanding of his client's enthusiasms and concerns. It is in this way that he will come to know the needs that reside in box number 2, and in doing so, handily deliver them to the known box up top in box number 1. Moving on, box number 3 differs from box number 2 in that it contains those needs that are known to the consultant but not to the client. Your years of experience and your superior ERP training have helped you to uncover this set of client needs. But the task facing you now involves helping the client understand and accept these previously unknown needs and expectations. Remember, what you share with the client might even be unpleasant for her to hear. But as the expert, you must endeavor to guide and manage the client through this process as you provide advice and education. Encourage your client to let you help them address these needs, and together you can move them all into the known box for examination and ultimately satisfying remediation. Lastly, but importantly, there's box number 4. The box representing a set of needs and expectations that neither the client nor the Acumatica partner are aware of. This is the dangerous unknown box, a box containing all of the toxic and combustible catalysts of a lose-lose disaster. This box contains conflicts, dissatisfaction, lost resources, and miscommunications. When your phone rings 1 month after initial installation and the client is furious because he is not seeing the efficiencies and improvements he was sure you had promised him, the cause of his dissatisfaction will most likely be lurking somewhere in box number 4. Therefore, your goal, perhaps above all else, is to conduct your discovery diligence in such a way that box number 4 is left as small and as unpopulated as possible. Remember, conflict is the result of unmet expectation, and the unknown box 4 is precisely where these unmet expectations tend to reside. It's now time to have a look at the discovery process itself. That is, how specifically might we go about conducting a thorough and meaningful discovery diligence review, one that has a good chance of minimizing the risk of the Johari unknown unknowns and a high probability of catalyzing a win-win engagement outcome? Well, logically enough, one of the approaches that many successful Acumatica partners take is literally to start at the top of the proverbial iceberg and work their way down. That is, they begin by speaking with the prospect about their industry, then the business itself. The focus then moves to key cycles and business processes, reporting requirements, and so on. So let's have a look at some of these stages in a bit more detail. Many partners begin their discovery diligence investigation by speaking with the client about their particular industry. Appropriate and effective questions at this level might include: what are the greatest changes you have seen in your industry over the last few years? What changes do you see on the horizon? What is the nature of the governmental or regulatory environment? What mandates, reports, or laws are particularly relevant or onerous? What is the nature of the competitive landscape? What are the barriers to entry and exit? And what is the distribution of power between vendors, the firm itself, and consumers? As you listen closely, think about what the client is telling you and what impact these issues have in terms of the client's accounting and information system. The business. You can engage your client in a discussion of their specific business by first asking the following: tell me about your business. This is an utterly open-ended question that will most likely help you to identify some of the client's more pressing concerns. You might then ask the client about their firm's goals, both long and short term. You might even ask about the goals that were set in previous years and inquire to what extent those goals were met. Again, listen for needs, expectations, and opportunities. By all means, have your client talk to you about the company's business drivers, those factors that make or break the business. Probe. If your client says something like, "Sales make or break my business," ask the client what it is that drives sales. Consider asking the prospect to walk you through a quick SWOT analysis, a discussion of the firm's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Perhaps you could then engage the prospect in a discussion of the firm's resource constraints. And yes, as quite as the question has become, you might even want to ask the question, what keeps you up at night? But please, by all means, do find a more original way to ask the question. As you continue to drill down, gaining an ever greater understanding of your client's needs and wants, you may want to begin to get a feel for key business processes. Time being scarce, what you want to do is focus on those processes that are either the most mission critical or that are most complex. Interview a number of client employees, if possible. Have them walk you through various transactions and cycles. Tell me how an order is processed or how inventory is purchased. Ask about controls and the procedures that the client uses to promote accurate and complete data collection and dissemination. Ask about monthly or ongoing reconciliations and why are they necessary? Are they problematic? Have a look at the accounting system overall. Is this client leveraging technology, or is it rather all labor intensive? Of course, you may also want to review any systems documentations or methods and procedures manuals. Surely, by engaging in these types of activities, you will come to better understand your client's needs, wants, resources, and expectations. Reports, dashboards, and executive information. As you proceed with discovery diligence, you will want to talk to your prospect about reports, dashboards, and executive information. It is fair to say that one of the most popular reasons that businesses look for new accounting systems is because they are interested in expanding their reporting capabilities. Remember, however, that although you are asking questions at this stage about the reporting, the underlying needs you may identify can be rooted anywhere in the organization. That said, areas of inquiry for this stage might include asking, who are the users of information within the organization? What external parties receive reporting information? What reports are particularly critical? Do you trust the information generated by your system? Are reports simple to access and are they easy to use? And also, are any reports generated outside the system? That is, for example, is the client using Excel and why? Okay. You now have a pretty solid understanding of the prospect's business, their industry, and also hopefully you have established a solid rapport with the prospect, because it is now time for a frank and candid discussion between you and your prospect regarding their exact expectations for their new ERP system. Here it is imperative that you ask the prospect to tell you specifically what their expectations are for the overall project, what gains they expect to realize, and what benefits they expect to achieve. Remember, conflict is the result of unmet expectations. Get the client's expectations out on the table. Address them openly and honestly, and you are well on your way to a win-win engagement. The more you prepare for prospect diligence, the better will be your result. Remember, one of the keys to a win-win engagement has to do with gaining a deep understanding of your client's needs and expectations. Therefore, it stands to reason that anything you could reasonably do to educate yourself about the client or their industry will help you in that regard. After all, one of the most important needs and expectations that a client has is a need to know she is doing business with a knowledgeable and dedicated professional that genuinely cares about her and her company. Here are some ideas that you can use to learn more about a prospect and their industry. These will also likely help you increase the efficacy of your diligence. First, carefully review your prospect's website as well as the websites of your prospect's competitors. See what value propositions each is highlighting, what news they are announcing. Look around the site. You may even find a useful white paper or two. Don't forget also to utilize Google or some other search engine to assist you in your research. For example, let's say I'm about to meet with a medium-sized regional trucking company. I've never had a client in that industry, but I know it's important to understand the challenges my prospect might be facing. So I go to Google and enter challenges in the trucking industry. And instantly I find an article called The Top 10 Challenges in the Trucking Industry. I scan the article and quickly come to learn that among the challenges my particular prospect may be facing are rapidly rising fuel costs, which clearly are going to be putting a strain on profitability and other resources, driver shortages and turnover, which may mean that among other things, this client is going to be dealing with various personnel issues and possibly is going to have to be staying on top of unemployment claims, and intensive regulatory issues, which may require that the client have certain reporting requirements or document retention mandates. Having read this one article, I am now able to have a more productive first meeting with my trucking prospect. No doubt they will appreciate my basic industry understanding and view me as someone that has already shown an interest in their business. And all of this took no more than a couple of minutes. Trade association websites are a wonderful source of industry information. These websites are often overflowing with industry statistics and other valuable facts that are easily accessible and could be invaluable to your diligence and sales efforts. So let's assume for a moment that I'm about to meet with a local real estate brokerage company. Being a diligent Acumatica partner, I could go to the website for the National Association of Realtors. Immediately I see a tab called Research and Statistics. Many industry websites have this sort of tab. One click and I come to this, a data-rich fact sheet which informs me that, among other things, the median income in 2011 of a realtor was around $35,000, that about 60% of brokers are affiliated with an independent brokerage firm rather than a Century 21 or the like, that 80% of brokers are independent contractors, and that 72% of brokers receive no benefits from their affiliated agency. Clearly, all of these facts have implications for the ERP system. And again, I found all of this information in a matter of just a few minutes. A couple other ideas. Have a look at analyst industry reports. You may be able to find studies from Frost & Sullivan or Forrester Research, Yankee Group, or the Gardner Group. By all means, also, don't forget to use your network. If you are about to meet with a prospect in the medical supplies business, ask your colleagues, clients, or peers who they know in the industry. Most business people are willing to either talk to you or at least refer you to some valuable industry resources. Okay, one last suggestion. Consider reviewing Securities and Exchange Commission public filings, and in particular, recent initial public offering prospectuses. As most of you know, before a company can issue public securities, it must file a prospectus with the SEC. These are incredibly information-rich documents that can tell you so much about a particular business, but also about a particular industry. The way you would go about using SEC documents is to find a public company that is comparable to the company you're about to visit. Then go to the SEC website at www.sec.gov and search for that public company's S-1 registration statement or IPO prospectus. You can see an example of the cover of a registration statement here. Open the document and you will find an interactive table of contents that will look almost exactly like this one. Feel free to examine the S-1 in as much detail as you like. But take note, there are 5 sections of every prospectus which for our purposes are particularly useful. These are the prospectus summary, the risk factors, management's discussion and analysis, the business section, and the financial statements. The prospectus summary contains a company overview, industry statistics about the size and growth of the industry, as well as an overview of the business model. This can give you a great idea of how companies in this industry transact business. The next section you'll want to look at is the risk factor section. This is a section that lists and briefly explains the risks relating to the operations of the company's business, its sales of its products in the marketplace, and other factors that may affect a company's ability to succeed. The relevance of this section for our purposes, of course, is that companies in the same industry are likely to face a common set of risk factors, and those risk factors will certainly have an impact on the ERP system. The next section to look at is management's discussion and analysis. In this section, the company will talk about financial trends both for its business and for the industry. This is a good section to kind of get a feel for business drivers and also any peculiar accounting issues that are relevant to that industry. Moving on, have a look at the business section. This is a lengthy narrative that talks about all aspects of that company's business. It contains information about how they go to market, about growth strategies, about technologies, about research and development. It also has a section on regulatory and legal issues, and as well as a section on competition. Finally, there are the financial statements. Every prospectus will contain a full set of financial statements with footnotes. Have a look at the footnotes. See if you could identify any peculiar accounting policies or reporting requirements. You may even want to do some high-level financial analysis. Have a look at, for example, the margins for the company's prospectus you're looking at. Compare those metrics to those of your prospect. Should you note any drastic differences between the two, it may help you to identify a set of client needs. The takeaway point here is really this. The more prepared you are, the more effective your discovery diligence is going to be, and the more powerful the set of solutions you're going to be able to offer to your prospect. Well, that concludes this video on discovery diligence. We hope that by watching this video, you have a better understanding of the purpose of discovery diligence and understand the process by which discovery diligence facilitates win-win client engagements. Also, we hope that Johari's window gave you a new way to think about client needs, expectations, and resources, and that the procedural framework offered for conducting due diligence reviews has been helpful to you. Finally, hopefully you have a few new resources that you can turn to assist you in honing your diligence preparation and in your execution skills. It's been a great pleasure to bring this video to you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being an Acumatica partner.